In this podcast, we cover Boro's draw against QPR, the win against Derby, our praise and place picks, Boro's trip to Ashton Gate, and we answer your podcast questions. This is the Boro Breakdown podcast, and this is our Boro Matchday chatter in a pod.
Wants support. Curtis Fleming is there on the edge of the area. Fleming for Craig Hignett. Hit it, Higgy. Higgy hits the trap.
Ravanelli coming alive again. Janino wants the ball played to him. Ravanelli spots out Emerson!
Hello and welcome to the Boro Breakdown podcast with Johnny, Dana and Tom. We are the Boro podcast that gives you all the Boro Matchday chatter in a podcast. And what a week. A draw against promotion rivals QPR, a thumping win against Derby County, and 6 wins in a row at the Riverside. Guys, in the spirit of Valentine's, I know you're all loved up. I want you to describe how you're feeling in a love song. Dana, do you want to go first?
I'm going to go with I'm a Believer by the Monkeys because I'm a believer of this team. Got it right. I'm a believer of this team, and there's not a doubt or trace in my mind. I'm in love.
You're in love. Tom, what are you going to go for?
I'm going to go with I Don't Want to Miss a Thing by Aerosmith. Honestly, I could be absolutely desperate for the toilet sat in my seat, and I'm still not going to go because I don't want to miss any of that football. It's that good.
That's funny, actually, because the lady next to me was busting for a piss, so she was not going because she was like, I can't take my eyes off this game. Sums it up.
Yeah. What a start to the podcast. I mean, imagining Tom in his seat about to shit himself. And
well, I never said that, but...
what a start. I was gonna go with You to Me or Everything, but we'll take that. But before we chat about Derby, Boro made the trip to the Kane Prince Foundation Stadium midweek and drew 2-2. Boro had to come back twice, courtesy of a goal from Dale Fry and former Boro winger Albert Adoma. Start of the week, you took a point, but then were Boro fortunate to come away with all 3 points.
Yeah, I thought we were excellent in this game. The first half was like a basketball match. It was so entertaining. And in fairness, I wasn't expecting it. I thought it was going to be a bit of a hangover from the Man United victory. And I thought it was going to be quite a cagey affair. By all accounts, QPR have endured a few tough performances, albeit they've got the results not too dissimilar to us as well, to be honest. I don't think we've played particularly great since the turn of the year, apart from probably the QPR game, actually. So I thought it was going to be a little bit of a cagey affair, not the greatest of watches, but it was a really good spectacle. It was so entertaining, so end-to-end. And then in the second half, we were so dominant. We had 2 really big chances in the first half. Neil Taylor popping up in a striker's position, which he seems to be floating around those areas at the moment. And then Spara hits the crossbar. Our dominance in the second half, it felt like it was only going to end up with the 3rd Boro goal. Obviously, we got 2nd. And I was reading the stat, actually. I'll just get it up here. From Jack Supple, a QPR stato, at JT Supple on Twitter, he said that QPR have kept a clean sheet in 3 consecutive home league games for the first time since March 2016. The next game in that run back in 2016 was a 3-2 defeat to Middlesbrough. So can you imagine if we'd have scored that 3rd goal, there would be another parallel to that promotion season, but not to be. It was a good performance nonetheless.
Yeah, it was a really good performance, but Tom, a lot of Boro fans were describing it's probably one of the best performances this season. But why do you think that was?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely up there, isn't it? But I think, like Dana said, I was fully expecting there to be some sort of hangover effect from Man United as well. I was wondering, how much is that 120 minutes plus penalties taken out of the players? And that answered the question in that game of not much at all, because they were absolutely fantastic. QPR, I think, have been a good team this season, but I think that's 2 games where we played them this season where we arguably should have won it. Like the Riverside one, I think we shot ourselves in the foot, and you could argue we kind of did this game as well. But it's 2 games we should have won against them this season, and realistically, if we do manage to get into the playoffs and they're there as well, they're not really something to fear, kind of based on those two games and our performances against them.
Yeah, and we've played the teams in and around us now, and I don't think there's a team that actually scares me now. And I think I appreciate there's Fulham that are running away with it. I mean, Mitrovic has scored 31 goals this season already. Bournemouth, they've got the players, but the management, I'm starting to question. I think the playoffs and all the way down to maybe like 11th or 12th, you're thinking, I think I'm not worried about most teams. I think when we look at us now and the way that we've been playing, I can kind of see us being in and around those positions towards the end of the season. But Tom, you've been praising him for the last couple of weeks. But Joel, it's the standard Boro breakdown fashion. The curse returns. Lumley making a bit of an error. But is it important that we get past this and, you give him the benefit of the doubt, or should we look to maybe potentially make a change?
Yeah, I mean, it's typical that happened, isn't it? Like, I was cursing his name as soon as it did. But I'm not just saying this because I have been praising him, but I think it is something we do need to get past. But I think it's only because, we can't change it till the end of the season. And I do still think he's our best option there. I really wasn't convinced by Daniels when he was in goal, that stint he had. And it's a big gamble now if you're taking Lumley out to put Solbrin in. Like, he's very much an unknown quantity. So, I mean, it was similar yesterday in terms of the playing out from the back, especially when Lumley has it on his left foot. It's just like, oh, what is he going to do? And why is he keeping hold of it for so long? And he did something similar in the Man United game. Kind of dropped a couple of clangers there as well. So I think that needs to probably be coached out with him just a little bit, because I don't know. I don't know if this is the case or not, but I think he seemed a little bit overconfident in those couple of games in playing out from the back, and obviously it cost us in the QPR game. But I do still think, out with the keepers that we have, for what we need from a keeper in terms of keeping out those hopefully low quality chances, he's probably the best shot stopper of the three of them.
And I think with that as well, in terms of the confidence, you want your keeper to have as much confidence as you possibly can. And I think with the mistakes that he's making, they can be ironed out. And sometimes, and appreciate it might go against what Chris Wilder's trying to do in terms of depending on how resistant to change he is. I wouldn't be too fussed if he's under pressure. Just kick it out of play, like just safety first, get you back in the positions, and we look to defend and get a team on the counter attack. But again,
I mean, I was going to say, I was watching the City match last night, and I was like, the only goalkeeper where I'd actually be comfortable with them on either foot at the back is probably Edison, and we're not signing an Edison, so it does need to be coached out with him a little bit. And there might be situations where you just mentioned where he does need to kick it out, but I mean, it's still the kind of player that we want to see in terms of playing out from the back. It's just, it does get nervy at times like that.
But it didn't overshadow the performance in general, because Boro's equalising goal there to make it 2-2. Lovely bit of play. Great work from Jones. Something that we definitely wouldn't have seen on Neil Warnock, but it was a very, very good goal from Boro, wasn't it?
It was great build-up play, great patient build-up play, and something that Boro have done recently of late, actually, because what we will do is we'll shift it from one side to the other. And we saw this against Reading, we saw it against Derby yesterday, we saw it against QPR, where we will try to feed it onto that right-hand side, but we feed it onto the right-hand side when there's space for Jones to accelerate into and to take on his man, basically front up his marker, and then go. So we pass it along the midfield, we shift it onto the left, and then as we shift it onto the left, the opposition defence also shifts onto the left to obviously attend to that left-hand side. But what Jones does is he hangs so wide, even when the defence is kind of compacted. And then we saw it. It's always usually McNair, actually, that plays it back out onto the right-hand side with Jones. And then he has about 5 or 6 yards on his man. And as soon as you give Isaiah Jones space against you, you're going to be in trouble, because he can front you up, he could get close to you, and then he just goes. And it was an unbelievable move. I mean, the nutmeg on Lee Wallace is filthy. But also Tav plays a crucial part in this, and we tweeted it after the game, where he's being marked by Sam Field in a position where Jones 5 seconds later runs into. It's that space that they're both taking up. Tav just makes a run on the outside of Jones and he pulls Sam Field out of position. And what you see with Sam Field is his momentum is shifted on his right side, so that when Jones nutmegs Lee Wallace and gets into that space, he tries so hard to get back onto his left, but the weight of his body is on his right because he's attending to Tav. So it just buys that extra two or 3 seconds for Jones to accelerate into that space. And as we see so much, he gets to the byline and it's a good cross. And what a finish from Uncle Albert. I mean, I'm a little bit annoyed that it was Albert that got on the end of it because it robbed Neil Taylor of a goal, the first goal that he would have scored in senior football that isn't for his country. And also it robs...
Right?
Yeah, I think so,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
And it robs Jones of an assist. So it's unfortunate, but hey, we'll take it. So thank you, Albert.
I know. I think Shithousery from Boro fans as well, singing "Oh Albert Adoma" for the remainder of the game as well. So I mean, good on Albert as well. You know, I mean, disappointed that he didn't celebrate himself. I think he had a great period at Boro. And sometimes you just got to give back to your former clubs, and I think he did that very, very, very well with that own goal. And I think maybe he went home and put his Boro shirt on and started celebrating a little bit because he was
Started
happy with
dancing
it.
like with the Yeovil cheerleaders.
Exactly. Exactly that. But I think Denny is spot on. I think it was, what was it, 62 touches or something, stuff like that
It
in the
was
60s.
26 touches, and there was a good stat from Brad Jones, not the Brad Jones, by the way, which said that there were 60 something passes. Yeah, you're right there, Johnny. 26, no, what was it?
62 touches.
60 touches, 26 passes. That was a brain fart. And then in Warnock's last game against West Brom in the second half, there were 27 completed passes in the entirety of that 45 minutes. That's mad. 27 passes in that second half against West Brom, 26 passes in that single move against QPR. That is an unbelievable stat.
Wild the ball in motion, isn't it? And I think when we were looking at takeaways from the game, then because Tom, don't get too excited. It's not the curry and chips at Manchester United. I'm on about like takeaways.
Yeah,
from
I
the
didn't
game.
even get that, so disappointment lives on.
But in terms of like the takeaways from the game, a lot of fans were happy. But what were your key takeaways from there, Tom? What did you think about the overall general performance? What was your main takeaways from it?
Well, I mean, overall general performance, I thought it was, like I said earlier, one of our best performances under Wilder. I think that's arguably up there with, the game against Forest, potentially the game against Blackpool, which obviously wasn't our best, but I mean, it was just a good game to watch. I think it's kind of up there with those. One takeaway I did have, which kind of isn't too related to the playing side of things, but I think it deserves a mention after all this time under Wilder. It'll be down to the coaching staff, the fitness staff, and the sports science staff to be able to put out a team, pretty much the same 11 after United's. We played 120 minutes and have that energy to play that type of football. And also I'm touch wood here, so it hopefully doesn't happen. But the lack of injuries that we've had in comparison to the amount we were getting under Warnock, where we were like kicking bricks and training and stuff. Like, I think that work deserves some credit, for that performance and other performances we're seeing, because it's clear that that's paying dividends at the moment.
Yeah, it does seem like we're picking up far less muscle injuries. Obviously, there's the Piera one, which I believe was his knee, I think. So
it's his ankle, that one. Oh, unless you're on about the one previous to that.
I don't know. I think the one at QPR, I'm sure Wilder said it was his knee.
He
was holding his ankle, wasn't he?
It was ankle.
Oh yeah, his ankle. Yeah. So, God, I'm not with it today. I'm too.
I think it was Johnny who said it was his knee in our group chat.
Yeah, I thought it was a cruciate at first. To be fair, I was like, oh, he's done. But then,
yeah, he gets it stuck in the turf, doesn't it? It's not great. Obviously, he's going to be out. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him again this season. To be honest, it's definitely a long-term one, isn't it? Wilder said after the game, it's not a 2 to 4 week job. It's longer than that, so that's unfortunate. But it's good that we're picking up far less muscle injuries than we were under Warnock.
You're doing your Sean Dyche impression this week as well. It'd be me next week. It'd be me next week.
Turning it into DJ off Coronation Street.
I actually thought Deirdre was on the call there. But Dana, what are your key takeaways from QPR?
I agree with Tom. I think that was our best performance this year. Definitely the best since the Forest game. We just looked so composed and like we knew what we were doing in attack. And I mentioned in the Warnock era that we don't have an attacking identity, and somebody tweeted me back with a very valid response of, why do we need one? Why is it so important? Well, I think we're seeing exactly why it's so important, because when Boro are on the attack, we will try to shift it from side to side. As I said, we will try to get it to Jones. We will try to have that overlap and underlap from Dijksteel or Crooks, the triangles on that right hand side. It's so potent of a threat against teams, and I think that's exactly why we need an attacking identity rather than it being more hit and hope as it was under Warnock. And yeah, Warnock wanted to play in the final third, but the build up before that was taking away a really key part of our team and our squad. Our squad has always been able to play, and our midfield has always been able to influence a game and take control of a football match. And that's what we've seen. And yeah, the style of play is a huge tick. It's what I've wanted to see from Boro for a long time now.
Yeah, and I think I'd just add into that as well. I think the three kind of like things I took away from it was probably we move back to like this thing we always say about the three words to describe how we feel. I think it was kind of like bold, mature, and controlled. I think we were bold when we had the ball. We were mature when we were holding the game at times, and made it really difficult for QPR to create chances. But obviously, the two goals we've gave away are probably something that you shouldn't really be doing. But in terms of the controlled side of things, yeah, we were really controlled, dictated the play, and we've rolled that on into Saturday as well, because Boro played Derby and we knew a win would take it back into the playoff places, and it was a game filled, of course, with off the field antics as well, which made it a bit of a spicy affair at the Riversides. But Tom, Chris Wilder, it's me now. My teeth fell out. Has made two changes to the side that drew against QPR, with Balogun and Connolly coming in for Spurran. What were your thoughts on the changes, and why do you think Wilder made them?
Well, I thought they worked. I was kind of surprised to see it at first, but also intrigued to see what Balogun and Connolly played like and linked up like up front. I thought they both did well. Connolly for all I wouldn't say bad press, but like the performances he's put in over the last few games where he has had a chance and no one's really been that convinced. I thought yesterday he was fantastic. Never stopped running and did seem to have that kind of aggression to win the ball back and try and make something work as soon as he got it. In terms of why he made them, I would think it would just go down to squad management and the rotation. Dennis said last week about Duncan Watmore, the knee injuries he's had and kind of managing his fitness. And Spurrar's been pretty much ever present for most of the season since he signed. So he could have done with a break probably. But it's nice to have four decent options, Don. When when we're looking at rotating the strikers now, it doesn't seem like if we did rotate them, there's really kind of like a too bad a combination there. If you see kind of two of them come into the squad one week and two of them drop out, you just think, oh well, it'll be similar again, and we've got quality in those positions.
Options and quality are definitely key, especially in this division when you want to try and find that consistency. But Dana, I want to chat about the game and just as an overview before we break down the goals and do more like a tactical side of things. But how were Boro able to dismantle Wayne Rooney's Derby, because they have been good for the majority of the season?
Yeah, they're a mid-table team on quality. Their position is a false position, obviously born out of the 21-point deduction. But I think we were really aggressive in our press, and our press is really interesting because it's definitely not gung-ho. It's not full throttle. Boro will pick and choose, and they'll be careful with their press. And every time that we do it with such... it's like we're hunting in packs. And I noticed in the game there was a trio of players basically around Christian Bielik to stop them from having an out ball. And I mean, Christian Bielik is a fantastic player and he could definitely dictate the game and set the tone of a football match. And we had Howson and the two strikers, Connolly and Balogun, all around him, so that when Derby were playing out from the back, as they wanted to do, they weren't allowed to do that. So they had to shift it out wide. And then that's where you see, and Jones is very good at this when he's aggressive and he picks the ball back. And press made that first goal, the Lee Buchanan own goal, because Liam Thompson loses it. I think it's obviously a pass from Dijksteel that gets intercepted, but then it's almost that counter press to get the ball back instantly. That's what Jones does so well. So it gets Blackpool to create the winning goal. It's really good, just attacking, defending and then attacking. And then the fourth goal as well, great press. What more typical of him to chase down a lost cause. Unbelievable from Balogun, that audacity, the little flick, absolutely mugs Lee Buchanan off, and the keeper Ryan Alsop. Great finish from Watmore, of course. He couldn't miss, to be honest. Although I did think at one point it was going to get blocked, but yeah, it's just the press. The press was so good, and our shape of the ball is so good. Players filling in positions when you see Dijksteel move out to central defensive midfield, which he usually does. It's just great work. It's great work in possession and great work out of possession, which we've come to expect from a Chris Wilder side.
Absolutely. And Tom, let's break down the goals, because each goal itself had a bit of individual quality, and also on and off the ball. And we'll come to Middlesbrough's shape as well in a second. But similar to Wednesday night, Jones absolutely whipping a ball in front of the front post and forcing there. How difficult is it for a defender to actually defend against those? Because he's putting it in a really dangerous position there, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely. It is quite difficult to defend that because, especially if you're a right-footed defender going in for that, because you've got, options behind you who are able to tap it in. So it really forces you to try and cut that out. But it's trying to cut it out at such an angle where, it's either going to go in your own net, or if you do really well, you might be able to put it behind for a corner or something. It also puts the goalkeeper in a difficult situation because there's not too much space for him to dive out and get it. And it's a tactic you can clearly see that we've worked on, because it's something that Jones goes to quite often, and we always have players in that right position to get onto it. So I think it's definitely something we've spotted we can capitalise on. And like I said, just very difficult for keeper or defender to get there. We'll say if it's a left-footed defender, it might be slightly better. They might be able to kind of hook around it and get it clear a little bit, but that wouldn't happen every time. And we do kind of create those chances a few times in whatever game we play.
Have you noticed as well? Sorry, Joe, just want to make a point here. Have you noticed as well the amount of crosses that are low on the floor? We've spoken about this so many times, even when Elliot was on the pod, Johnny, where we were speaking about the type of crosses that were getting into the box, and we never really had somebody that could get their head on it. And the strikers that we have now they want those balls down on the ground. They don't want to kind of head it in. Only really Crooksy can do that, as we saw against Reading. But a lot of our crosses are low crosses, and we were one of the most frequent crosses in the Championship last season, and a lot of them were just kind of wasted, whereas now they are much more aligned to the strikers that we've got, and it's brilliant to see. It's working. Those low crosses are really deadly for us at the moment.
There's really intelligent positioning around those as well. I think, if I'm remembering right, it was Balogun from the one example I'm remembering from yesterday, where Jones had pulled it back from his normal crossing position. He didn't kind of go straight across the face of goal as he normally did. It was Balogun on the edge of the box who was pretty much unmarked. I can't remember who it was across from him. Might have been McGree at this point, or it could have been Tav. But you had essentially two options there, and you had the two running in for the tap-ins in the 6-yard box as well. So I mean, it's good to see the intelligence of our attacking play in that respect as well.
Yeah, well, let's chat about the intelligent play from our strikers, because Connolly's goal yesterday, appreciate it, did take a deflection. Jones on the right-hand side, but Dana, the movement and positioning of Connolly is really, really good, isn't it?
Yeah, he makes a move to his right, which basically just gives him a yard or two on the defender. And then, in fairness to him, it's a really good swiveling shot. He gets lucky, obviously, with the deflection. I'm really glad it was credited to him, though, because I agree with what Tom said earlier. He was really good in that game yesterday. He looked really sharp. He looked really sharp. He looked on it. He was pressing really well. He was really aggressive in that, and as Tom said as well, he didn't stop running, and he deserved that goal, so I'm glad that was credited to him. But yeah, he makes a run, he moves from in between the defenders to on the outside, then he just makes a little movement to the right, gets a few yards on his man, and then that basically allows him the space to have that swiveling shot. And it was really good. It was a proper, should we say, a jumpers for goal post snapshot there from Aaron Connolly, and I'm glad that was his goal.
I think if you're a Boro fan, you want to watch the highlights, I would definitely just watch Connolly for that whole goal. And I think is like you were saying there, Dan, his movement is really, really good. And just that split second movement just before the ball comes in the box, gets him in that little pocket of space, and then he's able to give himself time to try and get on the snapshot. And obviously the deflection goal goes in. But how big of a boost is that for him, Tom? Because he said in the press conference as well that he was really low on confidence. Should should fans stick with him and give him a bit more love off the pitch as well to see if we can try and get the best out of him?
I mean, I'd agree with that, but also I think he's really helped himself with that performance yesterday because he didn't look like a player that was low on confidence. You know, he had that drive yesterday. Never stopped running and obviously got himself in the position for the goal and a couple of other chances as well. It's no surprise he was low on confidence because he hadn't really been playing regularly. And you look at the difference between kind of him and Balogun, who had been playing regularly, or I mean, at least in the under 23s and a couple of cup appearances. Like Balogun just looked a lot sharper when he came in, but that looked like a completely different player yesterday when from Connolly's performance to what we've previously seen of him. So he carries on playing like that. The fans are obviously going to be on his side, and that confidence is just going to grow.
And then just for the third goal and the fourth as well, Tom. Ball spread out wide again, like Dana's been alluding to it. Jones is hanging on that right-hand side on the touchline, really making it expansive. A perfect way to play against a low block because you're trying to drive players out of position to create the space in the box. And then that's exactly what we did for the third goal, wasn't it? The movement off the ball from Crooks was really good too, and it was a very, very well worked goal, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed just as we were trying to break them down. I mean, it's great that we weren't even letting up, like a minute before half time. We were still looking for that third, but the way we were stretching them to both sides, and then you kind of see Jones sticking on that touchline, you think this is going back to him eventually. And then I noticed Crooks's run. And I thought I lost track of him because I was looking at the ball, but I was like, oh, he's not going to go and help out Jones for a change. Like he's obviously trying to do something. And then just that drilled ball across the face of goal and Crooks happening, perfect positioning and perfect bit of intelligent play to get Jones in the position to put that cross in.
Great celebration as well. Great celebration.
It was. I feel like it's. I mean, I think Boro players should start creating more entertaining celebrations in general. We're scoring more goals now, so there's more room for creativity. I mean, have you seen like Ted Lasso, Tom, where like they're doing the dancing for the what's it called? They were doing some sort of dance. I can't remember what it's from, which episode it's from, but
it was from the NSYNC one.
NSYNC, yeah, bye, yeah. I feel like that's what I mean. That's what Leo's there for now. Do you know what I mean? Like Leo could comfortably orchestrate the dance moves from that. With the fourth goal, Dana, it was an error which got Boro away, and lovely bit of skill from Balogun, of course, for Watmore. Boro forced the error again, and they were setting up traps all afternoon, weren't they? And that comes back to what you were saying earlier about the press, wasn't it?
Yeah, our pressing was really good. It was really impressive yesterday. And just Watmore again, chasing down a lost cause, Balogun doing the pressing as well. It's just the ball down the line from Dykesdale that you think Derby have dealt with it. Apparently it went out. Who cares? It stayed in for me. And then, I mean, that flick from Balogun is just audacious, isn't it? He absolutely mugs two Derby players off, as I said. And yeah, it was just rewards really from a really good piece of play. And to be fair, it could have been more in that game. I know we didn't have the majority of possession actually in the first half. I think we squandered a lot of possession. I'll just look at it now. We had 38% possession the first 15 minutes. So I thought we actually started the game slowly, but then we got into it and it was great atmosphere. I think, to be honest, I was expecting Derby fans to be emotionally, or Derby players to kind of feed off the emotions and the passion of their supporters. But I feel like it was Boro that did that. And, our press kind of filtered into that potentially. So yeah, it was a great atmosphere, a really, really, really good game. And I am so glad that all four of my eyes saw all four of those goals hit the back of the net.
I'm not going to repeat what was mentioned to you on Twitter, Dan. I'm going to let people search that for themselves. But yeah, it was overall a very good performance. I think their goal in general, defensively wise, I don't think you can do much more, really. I think you don't really expect someone to hit something from that far out, but then also hit through a load of players, take a deflection, and get into the bottom corner. So I mean, defensively, I don't think you can do much, to be honest. And then overall, I think it was a very, very good display. And was Crooks a red card? No. So we don't really have to even debate that either. So let's move into the tactical side of things then, because Tom Boro were very, very expansive yesterday in what we've seen previously under Chris Wilder. When we look at the shape, of course, and we'll come to that in a second, Dana, where Boro looked like they were playing with a 4. But Jones stayed very, very wide yesterday. Boro looked very, very expansive. But why do you think that was?
I think it just goes back to what Dana was saying earlier about having Jones in that position to give him 5 or 6 yards to run at the defender. Was it Forsyth yesterday who was playing left back for them?
It was, yes.
Yeah, we probably targeted him as kind of like a weakness there, and thought, what, if Jones can get at him, we can create some chances, and he did. I mean, that's proven from his stats. So I thought it was clever with what we're doing, but we have seen it kind of more and more in our games recently. Taylor seems to be pushing further up that left hand side to almost kind of give I don't want to say a fake threat, because I mean he has been a threat at times, but like also draw the attention to the left side when we go over there, and then it can result in Jones being free on that right hand side to do what he did yesterday.
And just Dana, I mentioned it there, round Middlesbrough's like average positions and shape, it looked like we were playing with a back 4 at times yesterday, because Isaiah Jones was so high up the pitch. The shape was lovely to see from Boro. How does Isaiah Jones playing so far up the pitch benefit the team, or does it even hinder us to some extent, especially on like counter attacks where we can potentially be prone to a counter?
I mean, I think we saw it hinder us against United. Obviously, as I said on the last pod, their quality is far superior to ours, but we were pinned back, and it was almost the back 5 that we were playing. So potentially, if you kind of get at Jones a little bit, you can push him back and then push Boro back. But for the most part, it pushes the opposition back, because if you look at the corresponding position of Craig Forsyth, he was right back, because he obviously had to deal with Jones, and that's the beauty of it. I think Jones's defensive responsibilities and ability for somebody that has come through as an out-and-out winger is so admirable, of just his quality and his teamwork and his individual work on his own game. So he has the pace to get back. You'll see him slot into almost a left back position at times. And you're right, our shape is really, really good in possession, out of possession. As I mentioned before, if there's ever somebody that moves out, like a Dijksteel moves out into almost a defensive midfield position, Johnny Howson will take up his place at centre half. It's so well drilled and well oiled, whereas before we were just having, it's like a pulled pork sandwich, wasn't it, watching Boro? It was just everyone was all over the place. I remember one game where there was Dijksteel and Bowler both on the left-hand side, and they were both of our fullbacks. So it was, under Warnock it was difficult, but under Chris Wilder, we are just so well drilled to be able to deal with players being pulled out of position. And Jones has really just given us a whole new level of balance.
Yeah, well, let's move to the praise and place then for this week, because this gives you guys the opportunity to praise someone on and off the pitch, or a group of people if you want to. But who gets your praise and place mention this week, or mentions this week? Because, of course, it could be any or both. You could pick the same person. But, Tom, who are you going to go for in the praise and place?
I think the obvious one has to be Isaiah Jones, because what a performance that was yesterday. He got the 3 assists, and, he was our danger man yesterday, source of Derby's nightmares. So I think he has to... I think he has to be in there, but also shout out for Aaron Connolly as well, because I thought, with the criticism he's had of his first few games, that performance yesterday, like I said, looked completely different player, and I thought he was great.
So Jones and Connolly for you. Dana, who are you going to go for?
I'm just going to make a point on Jones before I move on to my pick. He's assisted almost half of our goals since the turn of the year, 46% to be exact. And when you factor in the part that he played in the goal against Man United, he has pretty much been the centrepiece of the creativity of this team, but she's not that good. But I think my pick, and I'm probably going to sound like a broken record here, but it's Marcus Tavernier. I mean, hats off to him. He's been absolutely unbelievable for the past couple of games, and he's been good for a while now. And I remember we got an email from somebody. I'm not going to mention this person because obviously it's their opinion, but he did say that our arse licking of Tav, as he put it himself, was ruining his morning walk in Rosbury Park, and that stop giving him the benefit of the doubt. But this is why we've given him the benefit of the doubt. He's always had the skill set to be a fantastic player in a Chris Wilder side. He's always had the skill set to be a fantastic player generally. And we're seeing that now. His defensive work has always been brilliant, but particularly in recent games, it's been amplified. His aggression against QPR. He was our midfield against QPR. He was the best player on the park, best player in midfield, absolutely. And I think he was a big reason why we asserted so much dominance in that second 45. And then against Derby, just continued it really good in the press. Loved seeing him go after Tom Lawrence when they had a little fight there, little headbutt almost. It was handbags, but I love seeing it. Tom Lawrence should be in jail, to be honest, so it was rather nice to see. And he's just been fantastic. And there were a few threaded balls that he played in yesterday that were good. He could have scored. I'm telling you, a goal is coming. He had 3 blocked shots against QPR in the space of about 3 minutes, and one of them was a really sweetly struck volley that looked like it was going definitely on target, but it got blocked. So fair play to the QPR players. But he's just taken his performances up to a new level, and he's adding consistency into his game. And hopefully that means that Marcus Tavernier is no longer a divisive figure. Hopefully now the critics of him are understanding his importance in this side.
And just with that, I think his positioning under Wilder and how he simplified his game has really benefited Tav to some extent. And I think when we spoke about positions and the best position for Tav, maybe coming in on his left foot to whip it in, or even just to play a bit more centrally, which might benefit him go up and down the pitch. I think the position he's in now, it influences the squad so much. It influences the team and how we dictate the play. I think Isaiah Jones will get, and of course, will get all the plaudits, and I think rightly so. I think his performances this season have been spectacular and something that none of us probably anticipated that to be. But I think with Tav, he's kind of the secret ingredient to how our team works, and he really dictates on how we play in terms of the tempo. So I think if you are an opposition team, I think you probably are looking at Tav. But since his movement's been so good, it's very difficult to really nail it down. But I'll be very interested to see what we do if we do bring a left wing back in the summer, or when Mark Bowler does come back. And how our team changes, because when Mark Bowler does come back, he's more of an offensive fullback, and I think that might benefit the squad even more, which is crazy to think about that. But I think Neil Taylor's doing a fantastic job, but Tav is being spectacular. I think my 2 picks probably for the praise and place this week, and of course, I think I have to pick Isaiah Jones. I think he's been superb. I'm going to probably say 3 now, but Matt Crooks as well, for continually finding himself in the right place at the right time in the box, which is a very hard thing to do, and especially for a midfielder, and he just seems to do it time and time again. But then also, I want to speak about Chris Wilder. I think that, and I know that since he got appointed in Middlesbrough, are top of the league, or joint top for points gained in the Championship, which is an incredible statistic, because sometimes managers can take a little bit of time, but he's just came in, hit the ground running. Our style of play is superb. You know, we play some really, really good football. The shape's fantastic, and I think him and Alan Neil, the coaching staff, and the team and the board and the club are all singing from the same hymn sheet now, and it's kind of exactly what we wanted. It's exactly what we've been saying for the last couple of seasons, and we're finally seeing the fruits of what happens when you pick a manager based on the current crop of players and not the other way around. And it's nice to see us really start to keep things going. And we've got some big games coming up, but with Wilder in charge, it's like I'm not fearing any team that we play at the moment, and that expectation of wanting to win games and probably winning games is very much up there across the fans now, which is unheard of for Boro, especially in the Championship. But a nice little stat, and we're still waiting for us to do this, but Middlesbrough haven't scored more than 5 goals at home in the Championship since 1998, when we beat Swindon 6-0. So that could be the one that we break this year, but who knows? But of course, we did score 8 against Man City, but I mean, that was Premier League, not Championship. But anyway, before we move into the questions this week, I'm going to just start off with one, then we'll move into the next few of them. But Michael says, how far can the club go with this coaching team? And can you see Wilder building a real legacy as one of our best ever managers? Just both want to take this one because I feel like he deserves a bit of credit from the pair of you. Tom, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a bit of an awkward one to answer with it being like really kind of so early in his tenure, but he's also shown us so much, in terms of his managerial ability and the coaching staff in terms of their ability. In that short time, like what they have managed to change the playing style to in such a short space of time is absolutely phenomenal. Like I have no idea how they've done that. But I think it just shows that the players that we have always had the potential to play in that way, like we were saying earlier in the season. I think we've got all the building blocks in place, minus maybe like a head of recruitment, which I know we're looking for. But with Kieran Scott in there now, we've got Wilder and his coaching staff in. We seem to be changing the attitude towards recruitment. I think we've got all the building blocks in place there to get out of this division and even build back into the Premier League as well. I'm feeling really optimistic about it at the moment.
Very, very strange was I think it's the first time, and well, for a period of time for this podcast since we started, like a couple of seasons ago, that we've actually been very, very overly positive for many, many weeks. But we could see this vision from coming off from a while ago. But Dana, let's have some praise for Chris Wilder. Do you think he can build a real legacy to be one of our best ever managers?
I mean, he could. He absolutely could. I mean, I can't speak for managers in Boro's history. I mean, I only saw Gareth Southgate, Gordon Strachan, from there onwards. And for me, Karanka's the best manager that I've seen. But and I know this is early days, but I'm actually preferring Chris Wilder to Aitor Karanka, which is, I never thought I'd say that, but I think he's just, I mean, the fact that he's brought about these player interviews are so good to give us an insight into these players. We watch them every week, but we don't know them as people. So it's good to have that. I think when you see him in Yarm having a Peroni with the fans, that's just brilliant. He's such a down-to-earth, normal guy, but he manages a football club, and his style of play, there's a lot of comparisons between Aitor Karanka's style of play and Chris Wilder's style of play. They're similar in terms of their possession-based, but I think I'm preferring Chris Wilder's style of play because it's just, there's a lot more, I guess, attacking vigour about it. And I think we definitely can, with probably a little bit improvement on personnel, be a team that finally is a goal-scoring team. And yeah, I know we haven't come close to the clean sheet record as we did under Aitor Karanka, but that's not to say that this defence is leaky. I think we are striking a really good balance right now, and I kind of see similarities. I know there's a lot of similarities between this season and the promotion season, obviously with late winners, etc., beating Man United on penalties. But the feeling that I haven't had this feeling since the playoff season. And I always look back at that season. It's my favourite season. I know we got promoted the season after, and that campaign ended in heartbreak. But the feelings that I'm feeling about Boro right now are not too dissimilar to 2014-15. And that, I honestly, I think that is a brilliant way of praising this, because I loved that season. So it just typifies how just the good feelings I'm feeling about Boro right now because of Chris Wilder.
No, I agree with you. Then I agree with you. And I think since he's came in as well, and if you look at Middlesbrough's defensive record, when Warnock was still in charge, we had a very, very poor defence. But now we actually have the third best defence in the Championship, which is pretty nuts, given that our current record's been absolutely superb. But let's move on to questions this week. And just before we do that, I want to quickly mention our charity for this season, which is the Motor Neurone Disease Association. We're nearly at our target of £2,000, but we wanted to give you a quick reminder as to why we're raising funds this season.
We want to make a difference on the podcast this year. That's why we've teamed up with the Motor Neurone Disease Association, which is a charity incredibly close to myself and my family. In 2015, my mother was diagnosed with MND, and I saw firsthand the deterioration of somebody that I loved. If you don't already know, MND is fatal and has no cure. It leaves people unable to talk, walk, swallow, and eventually breathe. But thanks to the help of the Motor Neuron Disease Association, my mother was able to communicate with us when she could no longer speak. If you'd like to help the Motor Neuron Disease Association continue their fantastic support for those with motor neuron disease, please give what you can to www.justgiving.com/the Boro Breakdown MND.
So thanks for that, Dana. I absolutely love that piece as well. So yeah, that's why we're raising money for the Motor Neuron Disease Association. Like I mentioned, we're just nearly our target of £2,000, and anything that you can give will really help us raise the funds this season. But let's move on to questions for this week. And as always, you can send us a question via our social media on Twitter or on Facebook, via email at theborobreakdown@hotmail.com, but also on Telegram. And we've actually just created a massive group chat with the help of our friends from Leveler. And that has got over 78 Boro fans in there now, which has just been non-stop since we've created it. It's been a really, really good atmosphere. And join it. You can find the link in our social media. We'll also put in the link to this podcast as well to join. It's absolutely free to join, but you can give us a donation as well. And what we do with that, we'll donate to our charity. But then also it helps us get future players on the podcast because some of them do require a fee, funny enough. But let's move on to questions like I mentioned. And the first one, it's from Jack. And I'm going to come to you first, Tom. He says, can we realistically hold on to Jones in the summer?
I think we can. And I might be being optimistic there, but no, I think we can. I don't think we need to sell him. He's only just signed a new contract not too long back, hasn't he? So, any fee that comes in, it's going to have to be high. And I think he's probably valued at more than we value Spence for, which seems to be about 15 mil if the reports are correct. And, I think Spencer's probably added on to that with some of his performances since then. So, any club that wants him is going to have to pay a very high amount for him. And are they going to be willing to do that after, one season? Maybe not. I mean, the stats are there, but yeah, I think that they'd probably want a bit more than one season before forking out that kind of money. So I think we could realistically keep him next season.
Yeah, well, Adama did it in a half a season, and so look what we got for that. But then just quickly, I just want your answer on that. Do you think we can keep him on hold until after the summer?
Yeah, I completely agree with what Tom's just said there about one season. I think teams will probably want to see if he could do it for another one because the good old second season syndrome, it could well happen. But as Tom said as well, the stats are there, the eye test is there. You can see he's just such a quality player, and I think we can keep him. Obviously, we've tied him down to a new contract, but what we probably need to kind of shift into thinking of as fans is that we are building assets now. We're not keeping players or buying players to keep for many, many years. I think we're buying players to build up their stock and then sell them on for a profit, because that's beneficial to the financial side of the football club. So, yeah, I think we could keep him, but we're going to have to fight off a lot of interest because he's been some player this season.
Well, I've never heard of this Isaiah Jones before. I don't know what anyone's on about. I mean, Jed Spencer's good. Jed Spencer's good though. I love Jed, and hopefully he comes back for a quick Manjaro's as well. But next question is from Danny, and we'll come to you, Dana. You've been seeing it all podcast, but what do you enjoy the most about watching Boro at the moment?
Style of play, connecting to the club again, going to the Riverside. And, I went to the game by myself yesterday, and I don't usually like doing that because I'm so used to going with my dad. I absolutely love going with my dad, but he was at work, so I had to go by myself. And you know what? I didn't mind it. I didn't mind it at all because I know that I'm going to a football club and I'm going to a football stadium where I'm going to genuinely enjoy it. And I've hung back a few times the last couple of games just to applaud the team right off and soak up the atmosphere, because there is nothing better as a fan than being in a promotion race. And I've been thinking a lot about the Premier League recently, and the Premier League isn't all that. I don't think it's the golden carrot that's dangled in teams' faces. I just see it as a bit of a money bank, to be honest. It's a brand, not a league. It's a bit of a hollow wallet, essentially. But the Championship is where it's at, and to be the top dogs or one of the top dogs in the Championship is a feeling that I don't think can be matched. So I say to every Boro fan listening to this, just enjoy it because it's some feeling.
Absolutely, Dana. But coming on to that, because in terms of enjoyment as well, we've got a question from Jez and Will. I'm going to come to you both as well. You can do a quick answer if you want, or you can do a bit of a longer one. But is there a genuine chance of automatics this season? So, is there a genuine chance? Dana, go on. Do you want to go first for this one? Come back to you.
Yeah, I'm gonna get the championship table up. I mean, I'm not thinking of the top two. It could well happen. I mean, Bournemouth are on 58 points, we're on 49. But I mean, with Parker in charge, I think they're always about a game away from bottling it, to be honest. Only they've got the quality now. They had that golden transfer deadline day, but they still have Scott Parker in charge. So whilst that's the case, any team has a chance. But yeah, I'm looking at Blackburn's runs are really tricky. QPR maybe faltering a little bit, certainly in terms of performances. I know they lost to Barnsley, which is a really bad result. Really good for Barnsley, by the way. Buzzing for the boys at Red all over. But yeah, Huddersfield are a strange one, because I was saying to Elliot yesterday that ever since we beat them, and beat them quite comprehensively in terms of performance at the John Smiths, they've been on a 14-game unbeaten run. And I remember after that match, I thought, Corberan's gone here. There was a lot of negativity around the club, but they've just been flying. And with teams like that, I can't help but think, they're going to fall off at some point. But to give them credit, they've stuck at it. I know this is a really long-winded answer. My short answer is probably not. I would actually prefer a playoff race. I want that Wembley redemption.
I think everyone wants that Wembley redemption. We've never won at Wembley, so I mean, I think everyone wants that. But Tom, what do you think? Yes, no, maybe? What are you thinking?
mean, I also want that Wembley redemption. I've never been to Wembley all on you and watched the team I was there to support win. Went to the old one to see Darlow versus Peterborough in the Division 3 playoffs, like back in like 99 or 2000, and they lost that. And then I've been to see the playoff final and we lost. So absolutely want to see a win there. I would say there's a small chance of the automatics. I think, like Dennis just pointed out about the teams around us, that is a possibility, and stranger things have happened in this league. But I think for me, at the moment, the focus would be improving our position within the playoff places as much as possible. So it's we get the most beneficial draw and fixtures come playoff time.
I'd agree with you both as well. I think although the automatic places are probably still up for grabs, I mean, bar Fulham, I think they're already up. But yeah, I think playoffs is definitely I think it's definitely the positions for them. But well, Tom, I said at the start of the show, and this is also from another Tom, so Tom to Tom. Is the criticism of Spider-Man, that's exactly what I was thinking. Is the criticism of Lumley over the top?
I mean, it depends when we're taking the criticism from. If we're talking after the QPR game, and I mean, there was some criticism after the Man United game for a couple of mistakes he made. I'd say that's probably deserved. There were mistakes, and I'm sure he'd probably admit that as well. If it was the criticism before those games where he was on, he just got the 10 clean sheets in the league, and we were winning, I think that was over the top, because I'm not having it that people were saying like, he's only getting praise because he's not making a mistake and stuff. He was actually playing well. It's just there's been times in the last couple of games where it has been a bit nervy, and I think that criticism was probably deserved. But before then, I don't think it was.
I don't agree with people saying that he's worse than Bettinelli. Like, have we forgotten how bad Bettinelli was? He literally made me tweet, piss off Bettinelli, because he was annoying me so much. So it was bad.
Yeah, I mean, we've had some bad goalkeepers in our time, and I wouldn't class Lumley as one of them. I'd probably say he's kind of in the middle. He's not going to be on Schwarzer, Shea Given level. But arguably, is he around a similar level as Dimmy? Probably not in terms of like actually coming out and catching the ball, but in terms of shot stopping, yeah, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I think people aren't. I think people forget, how bad Bettinelli was. So I mean, just be happy that you've got Joel Lumley in goal instead of Bettinelli. But the last question of the day, I'm going to come to you both for it, and then I'll come to you first. It's do you think Sporar will be Wilder's top striking target come the summer, or will he look to bring in his own main man for next season? Of course, unless Sparrow scores 15 goals and we do get promoted, which means we have the obligation to potentially buy him. But do you think Sparrow will be Wilder's top striking target?
I'm not so sure, I have a feeling that Wilder will maybe be looking for somebody else that's on his own transfer target list rather than picking up somebody that is already internal and is already at the club from a previous management regime. But it is interesting with Sparrow because for 15 million, I mean, Sporting will have our pants down with that. He's not even worth half of that. He's not worth half of that, I don't think. Yes, he's a good player, he's a good link-up striker, but for 15 million, you're really banking on somebody to score a lot of goals and a lot of goals. So yeah, it's interesting, but for me, I feel like Chris Wilder will want his own striker.
Okay,
Oh, sorry, it was 8 million, wasn't it?
That's 8 million.
Yeah, 8 million. Yeah,
he's
not worth. He's probably worth about maybe 4 million. Yeah, 15 goals, not 15 million.
Yeah, 8 mil for Sparrow. I mean, still quite a lot of money, especially in the Championship. But Tom, what do you think? Do you think that Middlesbrough will look to bring him in for next year?
I think if we have the option not to, I don't think we will. And I don't mean that to sound harsh on Sparrow because I think he's done well this season. But I do think the loan signings we've made up front and the options that we're going to have to be looking to ship out in the summer, I think we're focusing on that free agent window. We've got an eye on that for either Premier League or Championship at the end of the season to build a strike force from that. I think most of the strikers we brought in this season, the kind of short-term fixes with one eye on that at the end of the season.
Okay, then. Well, let's look ahead to Bristol City then, because Boro go to Nigel Pearson's Bristol City at Ashton Gate next weekend. And just we couldn't get a Bristol City fan to come on this week, but we'll break them down ourselves. Guys, I'm going to pass you over the mic. What should we look for? What form are they in? And how can we beat Bristol City next Saturday? I'll pass the mics over to you.
Yeah, I've just looked into a few stats from this season. They are, I would assume, judged on their average possession this season, which is 45%, that they're a counter-attacking side. They're fourth for big chances created, but sixth for big chances missed. They do have Andy Weimann, though, who has 14 goals this season, and Antoine Semenyo, who has 5 goals and 5 assists in his last 10 games. He is the Championship Player of the Month for January. They've conceded the most penalties this season with 7, and they are averaging 1.8 goals conceded per match, which is only outdone by Reading and Peterborough, who are on 2 and 2.1 goals conceded per match, respectively. So they've got an awful defence, 3 clean sheets this season. So there we go, Bristol City, clean sheet against us.
I mean, in terms of form, they've won 2 of the last 5, lost 2 and drawn 1, but those 2 wins have both came at home. 3-2 win over Cardiff on the 22nd of January and a 2-1 win over Reading on Wednesday this week. But the other games that came in that time, they lost 2-1 away at Luton, drew 2-2 with Preston away, and lost 3-1 to Blackpool away. They're actually playing at the moment as well, but unfortunately there's nothing to report on there. Still 0-0 at the moment. But, that's they're away at Swansea today. So, they're around the same area of the table. That could be a close one to keep an eye on.
So back to me in the studio. Just so we'll do breakdown and predictions because how are you feeling for Borussia Ashton Gate? I remember last season where it was a huge win when we won 1-0. But how are you feeling this time around? Tom, win, lose, draw, match abandoned maybe? What are you thinking?
I'm going to go 2-0 win. I don't know why, but it seems like over the last few seasons, we tend to have quite a bit of luck at Ashton Gate. At least the games I can remember from last couple of seasons. So, yeah, I'm going to go 2-0. I like the way we're playing at the moment. If we're putting in similar performances to yesterday and QPR against Bristol, then I fancy us to roll them over.
Okay, 2-0 from Tom. Dana, what are you going to go for?
Unbeaten in 3 at Ashton Gate, I believe. But it's always one of those grounds or one of those teams that just, they seem to be a thorn in our season. I remember under Karanka, we would play Bristol City and we could be on such a good run, and we'd come up against them in that horrible but very nice at the same time purple and green kit, and then they would beat us, and then you sat there kind of cursing old man yells at Bristol City kind of situation. And I still don't, even unbeaten in 3 at Ashton Gate, I still don't like that ground. So I'm going to believe in Boro. I'm actually going to believe in Boro because, you know, we're full of belief for this club at the moment. So I'm going to go with 2-0 as well.
2-0 as well. You know what? Let's go for a hat trick of 2-0s. I think we're going to win 2-0 as well. I think it'd be a difficult game. But kind of think we can go there. And like I was saying, like at the start of the show, like I feel like we can go to any team at the minute and just beat them. And I think that's a nice confidence to have. And especially that we've now won 6-0 at the Riverside, getting that building block. So when we do go away, we can kind of have that freedom to try and express ourselves because we know our home form is so good. But guys, that's it. Thank you very much for joining me as always. And thank you very much for the listener for listening to us. And Boro thump Derby to win 6 in a row at the Riverside. And with Valentine's Day just around the corner, I don't know if I'm dreaming. I don't know if I feel safe, but it's something that I must believe in. And it's there when you call it my name. Love is in the air. This is the Boro Breakdown podcast. And that was our Boro Match Day Chatter in a pod.